Welcome back, Michael Wickerson. We are continuing with these sorting algorithms. Turn this down. And in connection to obviously the searching algorithms I put in, I thought I'd put in a couple of extras here. And jive them up a little bit. This one's first sorting algorithm. Simply type it in, insertion sort. You'll get a script that inputs a hops number, and you'll get the actual definition, which works very well with it. And you can bring in, I've brought my numbers down to 1,000 so we can see how fast things move. And of course, it's not going to work because I'm not running my script, so let me run it. And then I should be able to update. Just keep in mind that you have to take your cache off, and you can see how fast that runs all through those numbers up to 10,000 numbers, 1.56 milliseconds. I then just wanted to add one, and I thought it might be nice to add to each one a certain number. It could be anything. Say you needed to just find a way to number these. You could move these around. It's a little slower to move because it's running this number to every single item and producing our first tree out of a sort. So it's still processing over here at 4.4 seconds, and then you output your data here. So just thinking about what you would geometrically do with these algorithms, you at least have to get them up and running as small functions with very small parameters. I really want my functions to work with under 3 parameters. And of course, these sorting algorithms are so powerful. Then there's Heap Sort I brought in. Under here, Heap Sort will run itself, but it decided to bring in 2 lists of 10,000 item or 1,000 items each, and that does exactly the same thing as we go down here. And I've seeded the one to just do-si-do away a bit, and you can see that it sorts 2,000 numbers very quickly in 1.25 milliseconds and leaves us with our initial list of 1,000 unsorted. I thought I'd put that in as an output so we could look at it. We're actually not outputting the inputted list too, so I should probably change the name of that output, but it still seems to work and give me the data that I want and process at a very fast time, 1.525 milliseconds. What did I do? Oh, now I'm really at the point of getting on to selection sort. Keep in mind that I'm using this kind of guide to look at sorts online, but I'm going to be adding a lot more in the sorting section: insertion sort, heap, selection, merge, quick, counting. And then when I'm done that, because GitHub Copilot is such a fantastic tool, as we load each of these up, you're going to see as I get to the end of quick sort, counting sort, I just did this Radix, R-A-D-I-X sort, and I was interested to see how that worked. And then the other one it gave me was a bucket sort, and then I think it started the cycle back to insertion sort. So at that time I'm going to go on to graphs and see what I can do with graphs in Grasshopper through the hops, and then I'll do arrays and basics, which is going to bring us into some pretty interesting libraries, and it's going to get complicated pretty fast. But while we're waiting, let's just grab one of these. Let's bring it down here. Let's say we're going to move on to selection sort, and we can just leave it small. Selection sort. That's what's next, and maybe we should write it out. No, it'll be selection sort. Selection sort. In fact, is that the one that I typed in? Let's go back up to it. We got through. Actually, this isn't really the order I do it, and the selection sort's right there, so that's going to be the keyword. So we're up and running. I've lost because I was. I'm going to leave my. I'm going to exit, and then I'm going to enter again and get a new URL written right here that I can copy. And there is a lot of data that I want to borrow to make this possible, so maybe I'll just leave this off for now. Selection sort, I'll probably go back up to just needing this data here. So I'm going to grab all this and copy it. It'll take a split second to copy. We'll bring it down here. We'll get rid of that hops node. We'll bring in the new one and double click on it. And because we saved, we better go back in here and grab here, put in the path, / do a selection sort. It's this easy and it's this quick, but really the trick is, what is the problem you're trying to solve? As we go in here, what would you do with these numbers to drive geometry? And let's just go up to the call phrase at the top here. Let's plug in and see how fast this is working. Let's ensure that we take off our cache for any debugging purposes. Look like it ran pretty fast at 1.48 milliseconds, selection sort. And that is all. You can jive these up and make them more complex if you want, but I think what I'll do is I'll copy that, cut and paste, bring it down here, running pretty fast, go down and see what our next call is, and you can follow through the logic if you want to do this through its while loops, and you can make sense of it and get very good at writing those, or you can do what I do, which is take the shortcut to GitHub Copilot, which is slowly rubbing off, but actually rubbing off a lot slower than trying to debug all this. But let's get into a quick sort and see if this one functions. Let's take this one, let's import this down here. We're probably going to have to get back to my call. I wish it came up each time, but then it would be a pretty long script. So just good practice for me is just to exit, recall the function, grab that URL, and you can see how tediously simple this ends up being with GitHub Copilot. It's as far as you have the time to sit and navigate and find out what you want to do. But I'd rather be thinking as to what problem I want to solve. And there is a problem with this. So what do we have going wrong in this sort? It comes up on my other page. Quick sort not. I figured partition wasn't defined. I ended my script too quickly, and I didn't define that function. I went on to the counting sort too quickly. So let's go back here, leave 2 spaces because that's the PEP kind of guideline, 2 spaces before. So you definitely have to write your second function in. If there's a function nested in there, you better figure out how to do it. So let's exit it again. This may need debugging or a new name because that's how hops kind of has some issues. But please, yeah, don't get ahead of yourself. If you really do just tab and enter and go through GitHub, you're going to have problems like that occur. So let's go back in, grab our URL, pull up a new hops node, put it on / grab our quick sort. And like I said, sometimes I have to rename it to make it work, but this one may work with the values. It seems to work, and we've got a nice quick sort running at 63 milliseconds. So it just proves to you what a quick sort really does. And we can grab in here, and it does exactly what its name does, and give it a name. And you can start to optimize and figure out what scripts you want and what speed you want to be running. So let's take the selection sort and group that, and then let's continue through and make sure this one we actually did. Is there any call of a function here we did in counting sort? No, it seems to be including all of itself. So I think we'll be fine to copy and paste and eliminate that. Let's just double check our cache. That's one thing I keep forgetting to do whenever I have to redo something is get that cache off that. And periodically you'll want to go in, hit preferences, and go down to solver and ensure that your 1029 cache things there are gone as well. So we have this running. Let's copy it. Let's grab that one. Let's put in our path. And you can find a shorter way to do this, but I don't mind the tediousness of this. I actually feel like I need to be working in some fashion. So a little too easy. So let's take that, and we have an issue. What is the issue? And slices, float, integers. Not a float. Okay, so what's happening here is we have numbers, and it has an issue, and you can't see what's come up on the other screen. But this, if I go in, it might come up here. There it is. You'll see that list indices must be integers or slices or floats. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this. And this is an issue that comes up almost every time with people that ask me questions online. I'm going to want to close this out, and I'm going to ensure in the definitions list number, I'm actually going to take this to a hops integer, and I'm actually going to hops. This may solve our problem, may not, and this is usually the issue. So the list out, let's just avoid floats as much as possible in this. So let's do integer. Now I'm jumping around too much. Let me jump into this and do hops integer and see. Let's get rid of that name. I don't need those double parentheses. Let's save. Let's post. And at this point, I probably, what did I do? Name is not defined. Something jumped in here as name. Yeah, this one jumped in as name. I didn't catch that on the first one. So let's save and run. And run. Okay, got our path. Let's grab it and let's see if we get lucky. If not, I'll probably have to delay, figure out my problem, because that's usually what happens. Just be patient with this counting sort. Put it in here, go. Oh, let's see if we hit it. No, there's still a red. And what is the issue? A literal integer base 10. Invalid literal integer base 10, which means probably rewriting this. I should go back and rewrite the entire thing again and see if the integer doesn't affect the writing of the definition. So this should end counting, and at this point it's probably good as it thinks its way through. You'll see what just happened. It changed the script a bit. Counting sort, I'm actually going to change the counting sort 2 and counting sort 2, and it's, I don't know if I do that just out of wishing for good luck. Let's exit here. Let's go back and save and get our path. And if this doesn't work, I'm going to take a breather and dig deeper into what I'm doing wrong. And this is how I struggle through using hops and trying not to get too frustrated. If I do hit a wall with something, I'll usually reroute it. But believe me, we're going to have a lot more trouble going through. It worked. We solved it. It works in 66 milliseconds. Yes, that's how you do it. You just keep hammering through, thinking about what you're doing, watch those debugging, check that cache, periodically go back to your preferences, see if you've cached anything, and that is running. So all I have to do now is grab that counting sort 2, because that's the keyword, not counting sort, and I will bring it in here as a named object, and I would also remind the people looking at the script that this is going on there. Now I probably am going to run into the same trouble as I get into future sorts, so let's group this one, let's grab this one, paste it, and it's taking a second. Maybe I didn't paste it. There we go. Now we're going to go down, exit here, Control C. We can clear if we want to look at it a little neater. I've been learning Linux, so I'm super excited having a little bit more command line and knowledge to inform how I script in Visual Studio Code. So that's a huge thing to be doing in I feel in the background. So we're going to do Radix and we're going to do bucket sort. I think bucket sort's going to work fine, but I think I might have trouble with this Radix sort because I haven't wrapped my head around digging in here and seeing if I've gotten everything. It's got some modulus going on here. It's got some pretty cool stuff, and it's got some multiplying. It's actually a pretty cool script to have a look at, and it needs counting sort helper, a function that's built in. I didn't have to generate it myself. I didn't have to look it up on GitHub Copilot's like bypassing Stack Overflow. It's like pretty amazing. So let's delete this one. And let's have the Radix sort. Let's save it and run it. See if we get lucky. Because we've got numbers here, it might be another issue, and I can guess ahead of time that it will be that. Let's put it in here. Let's double click. Let's do our / Radix, I don't know what to call it. Never even seen it before. It's running. Let's see if we get a charge. No, same thing I believe I'm going to have. And there it is. Slices must be integers. Exactly the same problem as we had before. So eradicate that. Go right back in. It's usually how it goes. Is I think I just made it bigger or smaller. What has gone on? Radix sort. I definitely want to go in here to hops number. Hops, and you'll see all the things you can do. So hops integer. I want to eradicate that name. Ensure I get rid of those parentheses. And I also want to output a hops. It might not be so important to do that as an output, but since I'm going to remain consistent with that, let's go into here. Sometimes I like to number this because it shows me, if that number gets high, how many tries I've actually done. So we're going to try that Radix sort 2. We're going to leave this, Control C, hopefully. Control C, get out of the command. We can clear if we want. I'm going to save. I'm going to run F5. I'm going to grab my this. I'm going to bring in this and initially remember to take off my cache server. I will left click twice, follow the path, Radix sort 2, insert, OK. Hey, what happened? In Radix sort, what happened? What the heck? Radix, oh, I grabbed the definition, I didn't grab the name. That's exactly what happened. I got an underscore in there. So yeah, you gotta watch those double, and let's see if this one works. It does, and there you go. Radix Sort, jump back into here, right click, name it, save yourself the icon because that's going to slow you down. If you need icons because you're just a visual person, then go ahead and do it, or build up a bunch of them and make a nice development site. And I think if you push that to Yak, you'd have a nice little program up here. Everybody will want all the sorting algorithms as a plugin, and you basically haven't done anything really creative yet. But I believe the plugins that do the least amount of things in their functions with the limited amount of parameters coming in will prove the most useful for people. So if we're going to jazz up Grasshopper with algorithms, this is going to be the plugin or the means to do it. But I don't even care to put through a plugin and make icons for it. Why not just give people this application to run, or run it for them and let them access it from a web server? So that's what I'm learning to think about in the future. If anybody wants to get together with me on that and kind of double up, that would be totally cool, and I'd appreciate that. So we're going to group. We're going to grab the Radix Sort, which is running very fast, 68 seconds. So you can see how these sorts really became optimized with being written better. We're going to jump in here, do a bubble sort, and try and end it. Let's grab this one. I think we can technically go back into our hops node, zoom in. Of course, I have to find our call. And it's gotten tucked in here a little bit. That's why I kind of reset it. This should work. I think that's the latest one running, and it's the same path. I should really make a more efficient way of doing this. Bucket sort, copy, paste, run, throw it in. And what is the issue? It is list index is out of range. So that is interesting. The list index is out of range. Did I just, let me do something smaller and just do a 9 on count. No, I've got to dig into a little bit of why my list index is out of range. Bubble sort, now you got to kind of break down what you're doing. A list the sort, list index out of range, list is going to come in hard, and 10 times J. Well, I'll play around with this one. I'm going to exit, I'm going to clear, and I'm going to figure out what this problem is before I go on. I didn't type clear too correctly. This one is not working, and this is not called Radix. This is going to be bubble sort, and while I'm figuring that out, I'm just going to group this one, dig in here a little bit, and find out what the issue is. And I'll get back in the future, and we will then move on once I finish up this sorting. Like I said, things are going to get more and more tricky with graphs and arrays and basic algorithms that have much more beautiful names on them than the ones we've started with. So we'll see how complicated this gets as we look at all 25 algorithms, but with the additional ones that I've added, or the kind of A/B versions that I've added up here in insertion. But it should be a nice little script paired with a Grasshopper document to help people out if they want to start encouraging this type of Python and algorithms to enter their script and kind of automate things for themselves. Thanks very much for watching. 1 second.